So it's just really, really great to have both of you here, and just a massive welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
It's fantastic to be here. Thank you for having us.
Most welcome. I'm just really, really excited about the book. Obviously, the pre-order link, which we've got in the show notes, which is coming out because it's so needed. And tell me a little bit more about the title of it, because even that I absolutely love. So tell everybody what the title of your book is.
Okay, it's a little glary, but it's called Been There, Got Out, Toxic Relationships, High Conflict Divorce, and How to Stay Sane Under Insane Circumstances. And I have to say that part of that subtitle was written by one of our clients a while ago. She brought it up in our legal abuse support group, and we just love that line because these are the craziest things that anyone has to go through. It's so difficult. We always say it's like one of the hardest things that anyone has to experience. Not just a divorce itself, but the very difficult high conflict divorces, which are usually just 5 to 10% of the time. So it's
and I think this is so needed because I think, you know, like myself, and I'm sure many of my listeners who have been through a divorce process, maybe about to embark on a divorce process, you know, we kind of think, well, you know, this is just about dotting the I's, crossing the T's so that we can kind of move on with the relationship. But that doesn't always happen, does it?
No, I mean, like divorce, even in the best circumstances, is traumatic. I mean, nobody enters a marriage, expecting it to end. It's a permanent partnership. But there's another dimension to divorces when there's that element of toxicity in one of the parties, you know, and like in a normal divorce, we always say, like, it's normal to be angry or disappointed with the other person and have some conflict. But usually after a year and a half, people start looking forward. They look, to a future and moving on, and they figure out a way to get along with each other. If kids are involved, they figure out a way how to, to put the kids first and co-parent effectively. And maybe they're not best friends, but they figure it out. In these situations, they don't. And a lot of times it just gets worse and worse, and it's bewildering until you understand why it's happening.
right. And often, a lot of times, our clients will say that the post-separation abuse is worse than what they had to endure in the marriage, and they question whether it was the right choice to leave.
Yeah, and I think this is a really important point because obviously, you know, my speciality is with narcissists, and there is this post-separation abuse. So can you just explain to my listeners, maybe they've never heard of that term before, because these are kind of terminologies we use once we kind of start to understand this situation. Tell me a bit more so everybody else can understand what exactly is post-separation abuse, how it comes about, and what are the effects that can be.
So Chris knows I usually do more of the talking, so he's going to have to fight me for some, but I love talking about this.
Duo with this. I love
Yeah. I mean, people think about abuse as it occurs in a relationship, and I know all of us, as we were in the middle of the divorce process, it was like, oh, when I finally get divorced, then it will end. But that's not when it ends. So post-separation abuse is basically the abuse that continues after. And one thing that we often say to people is when someone is not in regular daily physical contact with you and you're living in the same place, their options are limited. So then they have to use money, the courts, and the kids to get at you. And they will go to no limits to destroy you through those limited resources. Yeah. And people just have no idea that's what's coming. And often legal abuse is a form of post-separation abuse with the court system and that's what we specialize in. That's what we have this legal abuse support group on. People use the courts to financially drain their partner, to conduct a terrorist campaign against them by saying, like, since you left me, I am going to take the kids away from you. You're an unfit parent. And just to harass and intimidate them to do what they want. And a lot of our clients have a sense of dread all the time, like, I'm going to get in trouble if I'm not perfect, or whatever I do, it's not going to be good enough, and I'm going to be punished.
Yeah, I hear you. And I think...
Caroline, my divorce took 3 years and cost $300,000, and it was finally signed off. Yeah, it was crazy. 10 days after the judge signed it, I was served with papers that she was bringing me back to court to completely change everything. Wow. That was like the last time I had that horrific pit in my stomach, and it's a lot better now, but geez, that was like
It is, and it just highlights as well, doesn't it, in the whole court system that, again, like you were saying, we go through this divorce and we're already going through a grieving process whenever any relationship breaks down. But when we're dealing with that high conflict, maybe coming out of that abusive relationship, maybe dealing with a narcissist, they will use the courts as a tool to further abuse you. Like you said, draining your financial assets, using the children, other means to actually do that. But the problem here is the courts don't seem to be realizing this. I know it's much better than it was, but the courts don't seem to be trauma-informed. And just like you were saying there, Chris, that, you finished one element of court over 3 years and then you're going back in again. So tell me a bit more about the group that you have set up around the sort of legal abuse, the support and everything else as well, because it is so needed.
So we started the group in, I think it was April 2021. So keep in mind that my own case has been in the legal system for 9 years. And I've been successfully representing myself for 6 years on the trial court level and also on the appellate court level. And I'm very proud of the fact that my case is published in the Connecticut Law Journal, which means that it's considered case law for residents of Connecticut, which is, it's hard to get something like that. But so I've been to court, like I always say, like 90 something times. Being in this situation, like I rarely meet people in real life who have gone through something like this. And I thought at some point, like, I wish there was some kind of support for people stuck in the court system. Everybody focuses on divorce support groups, but what about after the divorce is over, when you're still stuck, either because that person is filing frivolous motions against you, again, like the terrorist campaign of constantly trying to take the kids away, or as in my situation, where we have a divorce agreement and my ex will not comply with those orders. So I am forced to go back again and again and again to try to get the relief that I was awarded years ago. So part of why I had been in court for years was we got orders. It took a year to get orders in 2018. He still didn't pay them. He was found in contempt multiple times. So dozens of the court appearances were just going back again and again to say, look at the patterns of behavior, like, please do something. The lack of enforcement is a tremendous problem in family court, not just in America, but we know throughout the world. Lawyers that we interview all the time talk about this. It's a problem because when the courts don't do something right away, it's almost like when you raise a child and you don't discipline them, they become emboldened. So people who are not held to certain rules and standards say, well, if I can get away with it, I'll get away with it. So legal abuse is something that, I mean, the people who aren't involved with it, they can't believe that the justice system is like this. Do you think that's who you turn to? Why is the judge, why don't they just do this? And those kinds of questions harm us even more, because it's like, I don't know why, but that's what it is. And so we have to learn how to operate within that system. So part of legal abuse support group is we remind people that you need a marathon mindset. It's not just the fact that this is going to take years, but that you need to train for it. You need to know that when you think, oh, I'm going to be done next month because it seems like you're not going to be done.
And we're not there to complain about the broken system. We all know the system's broken. We all know it. It's just, what do you do about it? It's not time when you're in the legal system. It's not time to advocate for change. Go win your case, and then you can.
I think I love the term there, marathon mindset, because it's so true, isn't it? I think when we come out of a relationship, an abusive relationship, we just want resolution. We want calm. We want peace. And we put our trust really in the legal system that we think, these people are highly trained. They're going to be on our side. I just need to tell the truth and everything's going to be okay. And sadly, it obviously doesn't work out like that. And I think, like you say, it then keeps us stuck in these trauma responses, because obviously we're still going in and out of court all of the time. And that can trigger our own inner child wounds from previous while we ended up in these types of relationships. And you're trying to navigate then this divorce process, still feeling highly activated. So how have you both then been able to navigate going through this court system yourself, and certainly self-representing too? Because again, we hear, we should go down the legal route. We should, always engage in lawyers because they know what they're doing. So what made you choose then to actually represent yourself?
Well, Chris's was 300,000. Mine was 100,000 and took a year. And I just, I don't have the money. I mean, I had an excellent divorce attorney, and he said at the end, when we finally got the divorce, he said, Lisa, he is not going to follow these orders. So what I want you to do right now is start laying the foundation for when you go back. And when you go back, I want you to try to do it on your own, because if you use me again, he's going to drain you and drain you and drain you. So here's how you do it. Here's how you start building the case from now. So it was another 15-ish months before I went back on my own. And then I did have access to other resources. My father and uncle, they're identical twins, and they're patent attorneys. They don't know family law, but they can help with like little bits of stuff. I got resources at the courthouse. I just searched for resources everywhere. And then my background is as a high school English teacher. So being like a really good writer and effective communicator, I was able to use those skills, but I learned a lot along the way. I made mistakes. I learned what the judges care about and what they don't care about. I learned that they don't care about you as a human being. They care about getting you in and out of there as quickly as possible. I learned how to become laser focused to really decide what I want and what the court's capable of giving me, and to create arguments around like as if it's a business transaction. That's very hard for a lot of people to accept, because they'll be like, well, the judges should care. They can't care. Their job is to solve something, to resolve something quickly and get you out of there. And they're limited. They can deal with money and time. Family court is not criminal court. It's not a place where they exact punishment. I went in dozens of times thinking, why don't they just get them? Like, can't they see these papers say that they'll incarcerate? Why don't they ever do it? Just doesn't happen. We've interviewed attorneys from all over the world who say like they rarely ever see punishment for lying on the record. And lawyers lie on the record.
One of the things that we work with our clients on all the time is what we call taking strategic oversight of your case. And it's whether you're a pro se or you get up the best attorney in the world, you still, like, nobody knows your ex and the dynamic of that relationship as well as you do. And nobody cares about your case as much as you do. So instead of what we see a lot of people do before they get to us is they repeat the dynamic of that toxic relationship just with the attorney or in a different type of relationship. And they throw themselves at the attorney's feet. I did it twice where they say, save me. Here's everything I have. Like, please save me, save me. And it's not a healthy relationship. It's an extremely expensive relationship because you're using your attorney as a therapist, and that is not their role.
I see this a lot where clients and people in my community will become codependent on their divorce attorneys and lawyers because their expectation is, you're trained in this, you need to fix it for me, as opposed to empowering themselves. And like you say, that doesn't mean someone may not have an attorney or a lawyer to work with, but you need to be the one overseeing. But it does make it really challenging if you've already come out of an abusive relationship. I always say there's sort of two lanes when we come out of the divorce, the legal lane and the emotional lane. And you need to work those both in tandem with each other, because if you only do one, the other is going to suffer. And you need to do those together to get the best results, especially legally for yourselves as well. Because I see so many people going through the court systems where, you know, they just feel literally at rock bottom, and they end up giving up things like pensions and things like this because they're literally, and then a few years later when they're really starting to heal, they regret making those choices and decisions then at that time because nobody's there to support them. So, you know, the support group that you have to help people when they are going through all of this, because it can feel a really lonely experience, can't it?
Oh, absolutely. And I'm thinking what you just mentioned, a really common theme, which I just interviewed an attorney about, is how when you're dealing with a narcissistic personality or a toxic person, your inclination is, I will do anything to get this done. And how that is not ever the way to approach settlement, out of a place of desperation, because you're always going to regret it, because whatever you give, we know they're going to take more. And they're going to come back for
a dollar more, a penny more. I always say it's like an equation almost. You know, this is the kind of result that you want, and you and your ex are part of that other equation, plus the court system. So if you know the court system is broken, you know what your ex-partner is like, you have to be the one then to be like a chameleon and navigate then to try and get that best result that you want. But again, people don't understand that, and they don't realize that, because people go in thinking, I'm just going to tell the truth.
Exactly.
Believe me, my lawyer is going to support me. It's going to cost me, you know, a few $1,000s to go through this process, happily ever after. And it just doesn't work like that. It really doesn't. And it's so challenging for people to be able to accept that, because I think one of the words that I hear all the time, and I'm sure you guys have the same in your community, is injustice. People feel like there's this injustice. I'm telling the truth. Why can't they see that? Why, just as you were saying, why can't they enforce this? Because court orders, these bits of paper that these orders get written on, it's almost like you walk out, they rip it up, and you're back in the system again.
Right. And what you said with justice, I think another common word that people go into family court expecting is validation. They want the judge to hear their story and understand. Like we often will say,
they want to expose the other person.
Right. Like, what do you want? I want the judge to know. Like the judge, that can't be a goal. And Chris and I are both New Yorkers, and we say the harsh New York reality check is like, that's not what you're going to get. Like, you're not going to get justice in the legal system. Nobody wins. You're barely made whole. Even if you got every penny back, you think of all of the time and money and energy that you spent, you'll never be made whole. So at least for us, or for me in particular, this has been such a growth experience. I always say I got my education in the trenches. I couldn't go back to teaching high school because I was always in court, and now I can teach all over the world through Zoom on a topic that I love,
And I call this, when obviously the work I do, this is post-traumatic growth, growth because of actually the trauma that you have been through as well. You're now using, both of you, your past experiences to help other people. And this is on a whole nother level then, the deep joy that you can help somebody feel going through the system, even though it is like this. And, and I think the hard thing is when people are going through the court system like this, and, they can kind of see what it is like, but that sense of deep emotion that they're feeling in their bodies, the triggers every time they have to go maybe to court and see their ex-partner, none of this is taken into account. And again, if the courts and the legal system was trauma informed, they'd start to recognize how people present, what they're doing, these trauma responses. Just because someone might not be in the court crying, for instance, doesn't mean that it's not as dangerous or not as bad. It's actually because they're in a freeze trauma response, for instance. And people sadly just don't understand all of this. And I think, for that person now maybe listening, who's maybe just embarking on all of this, what would you say to them? Because it can seem really scary. I remember when I came out of my relationship with my ex-husband and realizing he was a covert narcissist, and everything I was reading online was just like, get out, leave, no contact, nothing. And then this little caveat at the end, but that's really hard to do if you have children. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I have children with him and stuff. And it was ongoing. The volume goes up actually when you split up from someone who's highly toxic as well. So what would you say to somebody? Because again, this is, like you say, a marathon. What would you say to people that maybe they're thinking of leaving that relationship? They know it's going to be like this, highly toxic and high conflict, or people who are, in the midst or embarking on that journey now, so that we can give them some hope and some light with all of this too.
Oh, so absolutely. So definitely that is the best place to be. It's a horrible place to be anywhere in this process, right? But if you're right at the beginning and your ex doesn't know or too soon to be ex, right, doesn't know that you're planning to leave or considering leaving or anything like that, you have a huge advantage because you could plan, you could take your time. Lisa had that opportunity in her own situation. I did not. But there's so much that you can do to prepare. And we talk about this extensively in the book. But the first thing I'd say is if the light bulb was just coming on for you and you're saying, ooh, like we always have that light bulb moment when you realize that it's all the chaos and confusion and conflict in your relationship. It's for a reason. It has a name. You're not the only one in this situation. There's an explanation out there, right? So the light bulb comes on. The first thing, but it's a learning process as you adapt, right, to this new reality. Like this relationship is not going to work out. That counseling is not going to help. It's likely going to be an ugly legal battle. The number one thing is, 1 and 1A, don't underestimate what they're capable of once the mask comes off.
Yes.
The nastiness, there is no empathy there. They're going to try and destroy you. And to prepare accordingly and don't tip your hand.
Yeah. I like that. Tip your hand. I love that. It is almost like a poker game, isn't it? It really is. Because to them, it's win or lose, isn't it? And anything where they can keep on going back, it's about winning, you know, and you almost sometimes get dragged into that yourself, don't you? Where you become like you just want them to lose, as opposed to what can you get in the court system within the constraints that are there.
Right. And so many people come to us, to use your analogy of a poker game. They come to us and they've already been dealt their cards, and there's some bets have already been placed for them. They've already drawn their cards. It's like they're in it and they didn't know what was going on until they were already in it. So that's why I was saying before that if you're just considering leaving or very early in the process, that can be a huge advantage. Doesn't mean you can't be okay if you're already in the process or even if you're already out.
Yeah, I was going to say that the number one word that we hear when people end up on our doorstep is that they feel overwhelmed. They're confused. They don't know what's going on. They're thinking of hiring a lawyer. They just got hired a lawyer and they're about to go to court and they're terrified. And so what we do is explain, through a variety of ways, it's important for them to understand how the system works. And we always want to make them know that even though family court is known as a broken system, things are very, very predictable with these toxic people. We know they're going to give lots of false allegations against you. We know it's going to be a terror campaign. They're going to claim parental alienation if you have a child. But there's ways to prepare for that and to protect yourself against it. And that's why Chris said it is, you know, even though for people who are at the beginning, it's so scary, they are in the best position because they haven't made those expensive mistakes, that they have the opportunity to build a really strong foundation. And some of what we talk about in the book is like how to choose the right attorney, because you want to make sure you get it right. We never advise going pro se at the beginning of a divorce or separation case, because all of that is built on later. And like we said, these cases take years. So just know that there are definitely ways to protect yourself, but you really need to educate yourself and not just go in thinking, oh, all I have to do is tell the truth and I'm going to be fine. Or also understand that court is full of lies. Men and women lie using the legal system. They weaponize the legal system.
And that's really scary, isn't it? It's really hard almost that we have this conversation about our court systems globally, because like you say, you're over in the US, I'm here in the UK. It's exactly the same here as over there, as I hear literally all around the world as well. I don't think I've ever encountered anybody that has come through a toxic relationship or a narcissistic relationship, gone through a court system and has felt like they have had a good, positive experience because they just told the truth and then everything is okay, happily ever after. And it doesn't happen, sadly. And you know, maybe one day, probably not in our lifetimes, that may be the case. Who knows, as such, you know, but it is a process. So talking about your book, okay, because this is really, really exciting that your book is coming out. And again, we've got pre-order links in the show notes. So, you know, again, if you're just thinking about going through this process, or even I'd probably say, and I don't know how you guys feel, even if someone maybe has come out the other side, even reading this can be quite justifying and validating for them to read it as well, would you say?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we have a whole thing on healthy relationships and co-parenting or parallel parenting moving forward, dealing with counter-parents moving forward. But yes, yeah, from beginning to end process.
Just tell me then a little bit more about what is in that book. So, you know, like you said, there's some after bits as well. So, you know, is it like a workbook? Is it kind of strategies as you're going through? Tell me a little bit more about the book itself.
Well, just from the top level, you know, there are a lot of books out there that approach it from a therapeutic or psychology angle or strictly a legal angle. Divorce books, the market is teeming with divorce books, right? When we looked at what was out there, we said, you know, I think what's missing is a practical guide, like something that somebody could pick up and say, and our clients gave us this, like so much other stuff. You know, what one of our clients said to us, that what I love about you guys is you give me stuff to do. You know, not just, we're not here to complain about the system. We're not here to, you know, commiserate. We're here to say, okay, we get it. What do we do about it? Right? How do we put a plan together to keep the kids safe, to build your legal team, to get the support you need to get through it, to understand how family court works, how the other side is likely to act in the family court system, so you're ready for it, so you can prepare. So it's I think the most important thing that differentiates this book and really our approach in our practice, our coaching practice as well, is provide practical advice.
Right. And we like to say we do empowerment through education. So we really focus on empowerment because there's a lot of fear mongering that goes on, especially on social media, where the most awful stories get lots of attention. And it fails to recognize that there are people who do really, really well in family court. You know, a lot of our clients are success stories. I feel like I'm a success story. It's just that it takes a long time, but there's been many triumphs along the way. And again, when you are triumphant at those times in family court, it affects your whole life, especially coming out of these coercively controlling relationships. And it's such a joy to see our clients move through and start really understanding it and getting themselves back and getting so much stronger and better educated. One of our clients is now going to law school. I mean, we've only known her for like a year and a half. We're so proud of her. And she just decided to go pro se. She's an Indigenous woman who came from a violent on all angles relationship, one of the lowest, bottom of the power chain in America. And here she is. She's already helping others in her situations like hers. I mean, we're thrilled.
It is. And that ripple effect. And like you say, it's all very well having books on these subjects. And at the end of the book, you kind of close it up and go, yeah, the court system's broken. But what you're giving people is a toolkit. You're giving them strategies and tools for them to navigate for themselves through this process and beyond the other side. And that is so important. Because like you say, going through a divorce is, it's one of the most highly traumatic experiences that you can actually go through. Then if you've got children and the money and this court system, it's a really, really challenging time for everybody. And I think, the book that you've both written and put together is so needed. And I love the fact that it is the doing part of it, strategy part of it, things that they can actually implement to help and support themselves as they go through this process as well. And I think, I'm really excited for you. And, anyone who's listening, who's going through this at all, then you need to go and get this book because it's really going to help you as you move forward so that you know that you're not on your own in all of this, because it can feel a really lonely experience, can't it?
Oh, yeah. Always.
It ties back to something you talked about earlier about people having hope when they're in these dark days. And, a lot of people we see beat themselves up. Oh, how could I have fallen for it? How could I have fallen for that act? It's so they're so manipulative, blah, blah, blah. Well, these people, most of them have been, practicing manipulation since they were adolescents or even earlier. They're very skilled at what they did. And the reason you were targeted by them, we always say our clients are the most loyal, honest, creative. Think of any good thing you could say, right? All the most wonderful, we always call them sweetie pies. They're just lovely, lovely people. And that's why you were targeted. You were targeted because you were trusting, right? Because they picked up on the fact that they could do it, these vampires that, how they act. So, don't beat yourself up over that and understand that you can have happiness. I mean, I was still in the thick of it. Lisa and I don't know if we mentioned this already, sorry if we did, but we're a romantic couple in real life as well. We've been together almost 8 years.
I mean, that's like a love story in itself as well.
I know none of our clients are interested in hearing about it right now.
It's not like the Disney movie that we would see at the cinema. You come to meet and live happily ever after, but we'll take it.
And any psychologist, when we met, would have said this is not the time to get involved with somebody because you're in the middle of this awful thing. But we had this common problem, and so much of our early relationship was on figuring out what that was all about. And even in the midst of all the darkness, I was never happier in my entire life than, once Lisa and I met and we fell in love and all that. So you could be, happiness is there. It's not easy.
You both really epitomize post-traumatic growth, each other, the fact you're getting to help other people as well, with all of these strategies. And really, I mean, I'm a big believer in things happen for a reason. That's why I'm here. I mean, none of us sat there at 5 years old saying, what do you want to be? Well, a high conflict divorce coach or specializing in
my dream.
But none of us were like this. But, it really feels like our purpose, which is why, it's so important for people like yourself to come on and share this. It really, really is.
I was going to say, often our clients will say, I can't take it. Like they'll hear some of the stories in our support group and they'll be like, oh my gosh, I'm still at the beginning. I'm never going to last. And we say, you absolutely are going to last. And what we're going to help you do is turn this into background noise. That I've been doing this for 9 years. And this is the happiest I've ever been in my life. I have this wonderful, healthy relationship. I have this amazing career. My kids are indeed okay, even though that was the thing I was worried about the most. So hopefully, besides us teaching them strategies and connecting them to resources, but we can be that role model for the future to say, it's going to be okay. You're going to be okay, but you do need tremendous support and you need the right support.
Yeah, I totally agree. So if anyone's listening then, how do they get hold of you? How do they get in touch with you? What's going to be the best way?
Okay, so
easy, right? Yeah, right through on our website at beenthere.out.com. Lisa does an amazing job on our social media channels, primarily on Instagram, where we're been there, got out with underscores between the words. So
if anyone doesn't know that, I'll put all of these in the show notes for you as well. So you can just go and click on and go and follow these guys. Make sure you get the pre-order of the book as well. It's going to be a game changer, I think, for many, many people here as well. And, I just want to say thank you for the work that you are doing. It is so, so needed. And I know you are both amazing at what you do as well. You really, really are. And if anyone's going through this, they need to give you a follow and just to get that support. You really are a light at the end of that long, dark court tunnel and everything. So I just want to say thank you so much for joining me today. Good luck with the book. I'm really
thank you so much, Caroline. We're going to get you on as one of the resources because you have such wisdom that really helps our clients too. So looking forward to that collaboration.
Thank you so much. And again, I'll put everything in the show notes for all of my amazing listeners. Thank you so much for joining me. And I'll see you next week on the Narcissistic Trauma Recovery Podcast.